Okay, we watched Matrix Resurrections, but we're gonna kind of talk a little bit about the franchise as a whole, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I watched The Matrix Reloaded, Revolutions, The Animatrix, and then Resurrections. And I watched The Matrix when I was like, I don't know, 11, 10, whatever.
Yeah,
I watched
I guess 10 or
Reloaded, Revolutions once when they first came out, never again. And, then I rewatched them now. Before the fourth movie was announced, what was kind of your remembrance of the franchise?
of the Matrix.
Yeah.
I remember the first one was really good, and I had seen it again like afterwards, and I saw it maybe like 4 or 5 years ago.
I probably picked it up I probably saw parts of it like on TV somewhere.
Sure, but like it always held up, I thought. And then I recall the second one when I saw it, I thought like it was a little different, but it was pretty cool. I thought it was pretty good, actually.
And that was like your young teenage mind,
yeah,
right?
I don't know.
Okay.
Do you remember how long did the second one came out? How long after the first one?
4 years. So it was 19. I think it was 1999. Then 2003.
Or like 15 or something.
Yeah.
Whatever. Anyway, I remember thinking it was pretty cool, and like I was excited to see where it was going to go.
Yeah, and that same year the third one came out.
It was the same year.
Same year. Yeah, they like filmed them together.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. Well, anyway, and then I saw the third one and thought it was a huge steaming pile of crap.
Well, yeah.
And then that's my recollection. So first one really good. Second one, promising, good, some cool stuff in there for sure. And then steaming pile of crap. And I feel like that's what society has also judged.
I feel like it's been judged a little harshly by society,
Like,
more so than it needs to be.
One?
Maybe the franchise as a whole. The problem is that the third one is what people remember.
Is that true? I don't think anyone remembers the third one.
Not that they remember it, but like that's what colored their judgment, right? It's not how the movie starts, like how it ends. That's like the taste it leaves in your mouth. Yeah.
I remember I watched there was like an ad that came out for some other movie that was coming out back in like 2010 or something. And it was like one of the critics that pull quotes was one of the best sci-fi action movies since the original Matrix. And that was like such a huge like dig at the sequels.
Yeah.
I feel like it's held up well. Like most people regard the Matrix as like, that's a good movie, but no one gives a crap about like the sequels.
Yeah.
The second one, I don't think it was that bad, but it's the middle movie. So it's kind of glued to the second or the third one. So,
I mean, I just want to talk about what made the original so good. And
sure.
Everybody brings this up. And I think good movies have like you're saying, kind of like airtight plot, but every single scene in this movie, I remember. Like I saw this movie like once, maybe twice, and I remember every single scene. What happens, why it happens. Like there's no like, oh, they run through the hallway. I don't remember this. No, it's like every single scene is set up. You understand why it happens, and it's just like everything is connected and
very
perfect,
tight, and crisp.
So much so that even like the little love interest that like Trinity loves Neo is part of like the overarching story, and it like changes her actions. Like every single thing is so put together, well thought out.
It's well plotted, well written.
Yeah, the plot is airtight.
Every little moment like propels you forward to the next one. You're never like, what's like, who wants what, or what's going on, or what are the stakes? Like you're never like in this gray zone.
You know the stakes, you know their motivations. Their motivations propel the plot. The plot's completely tied to the overarching story, and you're interested in it because it's so new and like the concept is so novel. At least to me, it was.
Yeah. I mean, to everyone, I think. Like also I think part of it that helps that is that the world that you're dealing with, you're being exposed to like a whole new thing, but you're in a very tight knit crew. You know what I mean? Like they don't go to Zion, they don't go to whatever. It's just like this ship of people. So it's like very tight.
Yes.
It's just them. Like four kind of central, like Agent Smith, Morpheus, Neo, and Trinity. That's it. And some other, whatever. But it's all like self-contained, you know?
And
with clear endpoints.
Very clear. Dude, there was apparently some review by I think Roger Ebert. He said something like, there's like method and message. And he said that the message of the Matrix isn't anything new, but the method that they used to employ it is. Mm-hmm. So like the story that's told, right? Like, are we living in a fiction? For some people, right, that was kind of old stuff. They'd maybe already seen something like it. Or
can you think of something like that in media? I mean, like philosophically, I think it's kind of like a...
Yeah, they bring up those...
like the brain in the vat.
Yeah, and then
experiment. Do you want to just like say what that is real quick? Oh, in the cave. The allegory of the cave.
Yeah. There's a lot I want to get into here, but...
Okay.
Yeah, so the brain in the vat thing, it's if you had a brain and you hooked it up and you gave it all the inputs that it needed to think that, you gave it sight, you gave it sound, because that's how we interpret the reality. Could the brain tell that it was in a vat?
Yeah, that's pretty much directly the Matrix, right?
Right.
And it even says like what is real is just electrical impulses in your brain. Which,
Correct. And then the allegory of the cave was a little bit more.
well, it's from ancient Greece.
Yeah. So basically, you're in a cave and you're stuck to the wall of the cave in a way that you can't turn your head, and all you can see is this other wall. And there's a fire behind you, and between you and the fire, there's objects, there's people, whatever. And so you don't see those people. You only see the shadow that's cast on the wall by the fire. And what you hear is just the echoes of those people. So what you perceive as reality is really only like, I don't know,
You're only getting like a small
shadow of it.
part of it, but that's all you see. So it is like kind of reality to you. Like, what's your conception of like, oh, that's a chair? Really, it's like a shadow of a chair, and an actual chair is like, this thing that you have no concept of, but that's all you see.
Yes. And then
Kind of like that.
if you were to take that person in the cave and like take them outside and show them the real world, they would be wowed. And here's where this allegory kind of broke down for me as well. Because then he says, if you take that same person who's now seen the real world and you bring them back into the cave, they'll be like temporarily blinded because it's so dark and their eyes haven't adjusted. And the other people in the cave will see that and think, what? You're just as blind as I am. I'm not going to believe you, and leave. So
I didn't know this other layer existed.
I think it was Plato, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Plato's first part of the allegory was very well received. And then he made a sequel and it kind of broke down.
The cave revolutions.
Cave Reloaded.
Cave Reloaded.
Yeah. So that happened. But whatever. So the point of that being, maybe what they were saying philosophically in the Matrix wasn't new to everybody, but the methods, like the way that they told the story was.
Yeah.
But since I was like 10 at the time, another thing I want to bring up is the fact that tropes exist.
Oh, yeah.
But you're always introduced to like there's always a first for everybody.
That's true.
Right? Like, and depending on how you're introduced to it, it might be like the best thing ever.
Yeah, and I feel like that has a lot of appeal for people. Like that's maybe where nostalgia comes from. Like a classic story, like the hero's journey or whatever, anything. Yeah, there is a first time that you see it, and whatever medium that's conveyed in.
Yeah.
Even if that is not regarded as like the highlight or
The pinnacle of that medium.
Right. If it's the first time you've seen it, you're like, "Well, wow, that was so cool."
And I think that's kind of what happened with me and like Harry Potter. Probably, I was like 9 years old when I started reading those, or 8,
and you kind of hang on to that forever because it was the first time that you saw that thing. Or like a revenge movie, you're like, "Oh, I hope he gets those bastards," and then he does, and you're like, "Wow, that was so cathartic."
What is that, Taken? Yeah, maybe.
I don't know,
but yeah. So there's always gonna be a first time that somebody sees a trope, even if it. For somebody who's seen movies for 30, 40 years by that point, it might not be, completely original.
The Matrix, I feel like it's like drowned in 1990s stuff, right? Like it's very 1990s. There's payphones, dial up, the trench coats, the style, that like rebellion, the computers, like
cubicles,
even the idea, because back then, which wasn't even that long ago, but back then, like computers were less user friendly.
Of course.
So like there was like more of a divide. Like these people understand computers and these people don't. And then in that way, I think it's easier to present that the world of the Matrix, because like it's kind of like people didn't understand computers as a society as much, or what was possible or not possible. So you can say like, oh, hacker. You could just say the word hackers and like anything. The general populace could believe like anything, right?
Sure. I'll give them props. I mean, it's a metaphor. Like the Matrix is a giant metaphor in a way for like computer technology, but it's not done poorly. Like they understood it. You wouldn't expect somebody like in 1999 to make a movie about like a subject like this, have the metaphors, and to get them right.
Yeah, I have no idea where the idea came from or the original, like, I don't know what caused them to write, because they didn't direct anything before that, right?
No, they did.
Well, I'm sure they did, but like nothing big.
Nothing big. But I mean, obviously there's influences, anime, Ghost in the Shell, etc.
Yeah.
And virtual reality, is not the newest concept. Lawnmower Man even had basically what was like a proto Oculus.
Yeah,
that they had in there.
That goes with what you're saying. It's not that it's the first time it's done. It's the first time it's done.
I mean, we should be thankful that we weren't born 5 years earlier, and that Lawnmower Man isn't like what we yearn for in this day and age.
Gosh, we watched that on like a whim, and it was just awful.
We got to watch the sequel too now.
I thought you didn't watch it. I thought we did watch it. You might have purged it from your memory because it was so bad. I'm pretty sure we watched it like right after.
Oh. Okay. Well, anyways,
Whatever.
yeah. And I mean, again, the part of it's that we were, what, 10, 11 years old, but
Mhm.
it was just so cool. Every scene was just so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Like sometimes you try to be cool and it comes off
Not
awful.
cool.
Yeah, not cool. Like
Mhm.
you're trying too hard. That the original Matrix movie, I feel like they were trying very hard to be cool, but it worked.
It worked really well.
Especially at the time. I remember my mom got she got Trinity's glasses for the Matrix. She had that, and I remember she got the phone because like
They used to have like these.
cell phones was like a whoa, you got a cell phone? Like
Ooh,
around that
was
time.
way early.
But he had a phone in the Matrix that was like kind of like a flip out.
They weren't crazy. Like there's
Like a very specific point in time.
a very specific point in time this movie was made, and we can talk about this more with Reloaded, but
Hmm.
it's just perfect. If this movie had been made 5 years earlier or 5 years later, it would have been devastating to watch.
Yeah, like the landline connections and all that stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But also, if they had tried to employ the same things, right? If they had tried to do phones, like they would have these big ass phones that wouldn't have aged well. Like this movie
Oh,
ages
yeah,
so
yeah.
well because of when it was filmed.
Right.
Like Reloaded, in ways,
Like there's
doesn't.
not car phones that look hilarious in there. There's phones that are old, but they don't look hilariously
Comically old.
Oh yeah, they don't look comically old. Hello.
Yeah.
It's weirdly like even the style. It's like it kind of holds up as its own thing.
Yeah.
Even though I think 1990s style has like suffered greatly since that time.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say it's very simple. Really, it's just people in suits,
Sure, yeah,
right? They're not trying super hard.
They have like this kind of like punk rebellious aesthetic. I mean, the whole thing is like about fighting the man, right? Like the bad guys are the police and the FBI.
That's easy enough to do. But there's films like Equilibrium that I'll show you stills later, but it's not as successful in creating that aesthetic.
Uh-huh.
Which it's Christian Bale in a trench coat, and
Yeah.
it was filmed in 2001. It's a sci-fi movie,
Uh-huh.
but it doesn't manage to capture kind of the coolness.
Mm-hmm.
They're really just wearing black. Honestly, if there's anything to take away, it's just wear black.
No, it's the trench coats and like the glasses and like the styled hair, the dyed hair sometimes and all that stuff.
I suppose.
It's like a whole thing. Like if you wanted to dress up like the Matrix, there'd be a way to do it. It's not just wearing a black coat.
Yeah,
I mean, that's like that's a huge part of it. Don't get me wrong. That's like
It's simple.
That's like 70% of it, but
yeah. But anyways, there's that, and then I guess the biggest thing that keeps this movie sort of timeless is that there's not crazy use of CGI. That's probably the
true
biggest thing.
That's true.
So I'm not too sure, but before this, I think in American mainstream culture, there wasn't like wire fu, like the Hong Kong films where
Mhm.
people are kind of like
Yeah.
flying around like Crouching Tiger. That really wasn't a thing in the US. So it used that, which I think was a new thing for people to see, but that holds up still pretty well today. And then, when they did want to show like special effects scenes, for the most part, like it's pretty seamless. Like him in the helicopter, I guess, the helicopter into the building, like those sorts of things.
Yeah.
They don't use CGI with people. I think that's kind of the big problem that Reloaded had.
You're saying the CGI holds up well because it's sparsely used or used like with only like
Non-people objects, yeah.
it's used effectively.
Mhm.
I think like it was a unique theme or a unique thing that like I don't know. I can't think of a movie that explored those themes. I'm sure there was one, but I can't think of one that was like very popular that explored those things before. But also it combined this kind of philosophy with this like unique aesthetic of like hacker culture rebellion. And then also I think what it was remembered for is like the action scenes were like I remember hearing that a lot. Like, oh, the action scenes were awesome because like they invented bullet time. Maybe
Yeah.
that was a huge thing. And I remember like watching a lot of stuff about like that one shot where he's like falling over was like a huge deal and it was hard to do. And I don't know how they did it, but
Basically, they
just had him with the wires and fall slow.
kind of, but they just had, imagine like this, like that you want the camera to do this.
Uh-huh.
They just had like still cameras set up, and so 24 frames per second,
That's funny.
and just
that's cool.
really cool.
And then like a lot of the stuff with like the it was just like a lot. It was a good action movie. Like the action sequences were like when they're shooting them up like in the office building. And he's got like the minigun and all this stuff. It was just
Mhm.
it was just cool.
And there was motivations behind each of those things, and you understood why it mattered.
Yeah, it was not.
Like there was things happening on screen that you were rooting for, or you knew what like the end goal was. Like I want Morpheus to get to that
Yeah, yeah.
helicopter, or I want them to get to the next person. Like you understood why it was happening, and the why was good. There wasn't some contrived plot reason.
That confluence of things. Like it's got some deeper philosophical stuff. It's got like just straight up just good action. It's a unique concept, you know.
And it wasn't bogged down by weird special effects or an outdated wardrobe.
Or like they managed to communicate this kind of like, a lot of it is about philosophy, right? But that can get bogged down, or they managed to communicate it pretty succinctly, effectively.
And it wasn't like big just exposition dumps of
No,
like
it was like Morpheus talks for like 2 minutes, and then like you're like, oh, okay.
I like Morpheus too, by the way. Like I liked his conviction. That was great.
Yeah.
I think that stayed the entire, trilogy.
Yeah, it did. All right. Well, do you have anything else to say about the first one?
So not the first one, but then, I remember even when I was like, 14 years old, I watched all of them. And I remember thinking Reloaded was my favorite. I remember thinking that.
I watched Reloaded multiple times when it came out. Again, I was like 14, so whatever. But I thought it was, so I feel like they took the world and made it much bigger.
Yeah.
Because I remember we got to see Zion for the first time, and I was like, whoa, we're going to see Zion. And like, it was cool. And they went in there and they like added so many things, like the machines, the key maker, like different places like you can go and access the sword, blah, blah, blah. They kind of made it bigger, like a
Sure.
much bigger world, for better, for worse.
So I think
sometimes.
this might make sense, but I think they wanted to make just one film as a sequel, but they had to make it two.
Sure.
And so what I don't understand is how Reloaded could be so much better than Revolutions. Like they were filmed at the same time. The story was written together, kind of, right? That's what I don't understand.
So about Reloaded, what I'll say is like the Matrix had this kind of like baggage, like, hey, like the effects, it invented new effects, and the action was really good. So they had to kind of like up that,
Mhm.
into the sequel. And I think they did, because you remember at the beginning where she's like falling and like the agent is like falling down after her and she's like shooting up at him.
That went on for a long time.
That was like a whole thing though. Like they worked really hard on that. I think that was like them attempting to like see we're innovating bullet time again, you know?
It's unfortunate. It's an unfortunate period of time that they made that movie in, because they tried to push like CGI, because that was the next thing after all these practical effects that they tried. Because with bullet time, what they're trying to do is show that like perception of slow motion. Well, instead of having like film or still cameras take all these photos, why not just render it in 3D and you can put the camera wherever you want.
Mhm.
You can move it however you want. The problem that they have is technology, like to render people, I think wasn't that great in 2002, 2003 when this was made. And so they tried to up it, but it does not hold
It doesn't
up.
hold up. Maybe but it was good at the time. I think people seem to.
I don't think even at the time, I remember thinking this is terrible. Like when
Maybe you did, but I thought that.
I caught on. Everybody did.
Oh, yeah?
I thought that I thought too.
Well, the other thing is they had the fight scene with all the Agent Smiths. Those are like
That was the main
computer-generated
one. Yeah.
people.
That
and,
everybody just.
and yeah, that doesn't hold up
it looks
well.
like. And as a sidebar, this also makes you wonder, like, what if the Star Wars prequels had been made maybe 5 years before they were, where Lucas couldn't rely on CGI like he did? The problem with that is it's
Maybe
like
he wouldn't have made it.
it's like a chicken or the egg thing, because then he probably wouldn't have made it, because that's what I think motivated him to even try.
It seems like it was, yeah.
So it's just
That's like a whole side discussion.
yeah, but it's just a sad period of time where you can see a very obvious like dichotomy, I guess, with like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter as well. Harry Potter has a lot of CGI effects, and Lord of the Rings is mostly like it's a lot of practical effects, and it holds up really well.
Yeah. Well, they're trying to find their feet, I guess.
Yeah. And, after The Matrix, like they made Jupiter Ascending, some other movies, Cloud Atlas, which whatever else, like the effects were phenomenal.
I didn't watch them.
They looked great.
I read the book.
Yeah, but they looked amazing.
Okay.
Anyways, what I will say is the Reloaded, I liked the music, the practical effects. I liked Zion, like the setup.
Do you remember the car chase scene? You remember how they built that highway? They built 1.5 miles of highway, and they had like 300 cars to film that chase sequence.
Yeah, I remember watching like the behind the scenes, whatever, when I was younger. That scene was amazing.
So the things I liked about the second movie were like, so the chase scene was, there's a lot of gratuitous, but still cool. Like the chase scene was like kind of over the top, but it was cool. The fight scene after, like they're pulling the stuff off the walls, like all those guys.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I don't know.
The Merovingian.
I don't even know what you call that scene, but that
The
was
chateau
cool.
scene.
The chateau scene was cool. The giant dance party orgy
Was
thing
great.
was
It's gratuitous, but I'm like, you know what? That's fine.
I
You
remember-
don't see stuff like that. It was like watching a music video on TV.
I remember thinking it was like
Uncomfortable to watch in theaters.
with your parents, yeah, because you were 14, you had to get into an R-rated movie, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I remember thinking like this is going on forever.
They basically went through the entire song. I mean, that soundtrack apparently made them $37 million.
Holy smokes!
And I love that soundtrack. That was a big part of that movie.
I don't know. I ended that movie thinking like, okay, this is going somewhere.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't like it as much as the original Matrix. Maybe there's some things here and there that are whatever. But I remember thinking like, okay, now if it lands well, like it's gonna be good.
Yeah, I mean,
It just didn't land well.
They it's not as tight, like plot wise, of course.
There's more stuff going on. Yeah.
But you know, by making the world bigger, I was intrigued. I liked the world that they did build.
There's still many things I remember from the second movie. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like very clearly. Like him using the samurai sword to like cut the SUV or whatever. I remember that. Like
Yeah,
it's
that
still today, you know?
That was funny.
I don't remember anything from the third movie. Like almost at all. Except that it sucked. I mean, I watched it 2 days ago for this purpose, but before that, I remembered almost nothing. Oh yeah, that's right. And the scenes with the architect are really good. Oh, well, there's only one scene, I guess.
There's only one scene, but it was nice because it answered a lot of questions and Neo
I
got to make a choice.
Yeah, it was cool. Like it was.
It didn't just make the world like physically bigger; it made it like timely, like in a time dimension.
It was like a nice twist. Like a lot of times you can like have, I don't know, I haven't seen Lost, but this seems like the problem with that TV show where they just kind of like hinted at or promised things that were going to be like earth shattering. And then like it's easy to say those and act like those are going to happen, but not deliver because it's hard to actually deliver those things. But the architect twist, I was like, wow, he's going to go meet the architect of the Matrix. What's going to happen? And it was actually like somewhat satisfying.
There were a lot of questions that you got answers to, and then they raised a lot of interesting questions as
Also,
well.
he looks like Colonel Sanders. You got that right.
Secret recipe.
Yeah. Yeah.
What that scene also did, by the way, one of the problems that I think these movies have after The Matrix is The Matrix is kind of like a metaphor, right? Or the way that,
Well, yeah.
and also more than that, the way I always interpreted it is, you know, Neo can see the Matrix, he can do whatever he wants to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you suddenly got, I don't know, like a Game Shark, or you got, you know, like you could just like got access to the code of a game,
Uh-huh.
you wouldn't be, you know, in the game necessarily like trying to like jump higher or whatever. You would just be like, I'm just going to delete this, put this here. You could make much bigger changes than the small things that Neo does. Whatever. That's one
yeah.
little thing that I was like, well, he's just going to fight better. Like, shouldn't he be able to just like move mountains, do absolutely anything?
Well, the thing is,
Like, there's
that's
still limit.
when they ended the first movie, that's kind of what they implied.
That's what I mean. And so the second movie, I feel like Neo should be like
Well,
a
you still
god
have-
in this
You
world.
still have to
and
have a
he's-
movie, you know.
I understand. And so that was one thing I was like, okay, you know what? In order to have a movie, I'll forgive it. One thing that you can't change, though, is that he is like immensely overpowered compared to all of the other characters.
Yeah.
And so any scene where he's in the very beginning, you're not really sure if he's like what his like power is, I guess. But it becomes very obvious that, oh, okay, he's just better than everybody.
Yeah.
And so in order to have tension, you need to take him out. Like a One Punch Man problem where
Yeah.
in order to have like that highway scene is great because Neo's not there until the very end where he saves the day. But you know, it's like Morpheus Trinity fighting everybody.
Yeah.
And so the rest of the movie, it's difficult because like he's so overpowered. So he has to have battles of the mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
it was a thing, but I didn't think it was. It's certainly not the reason why the third one wasn't good. You know what I mean? That's not the reason why. At all.
So just to wrap up the second one, I think if the CGI I think was a little bit better and they had just taken away a few like contrived plot points, I think that movie also was pretty tight in how it like.
I agree, but I think that no one would still ever watch it because it's part of a half,
It's the same reason I'm not going to rewatch Game of Thrones.
and the second half sucks. Exactly. Yeah. So it's eternally shackled to like, you know, a corpse of a movie, and it can't escape. You know.
Yeah. So then I watched the third one.
Yeah.
The problem is like that movie, it spent more than half of its runtime, I think, with him fighting Smith at the end and with like that Zion just like holding on for dear life scene.
Yeah.
Like really you could cut off 60-70% of that movie and it would be fine.
It was kind of it was kind of unclear what the point was, what the problem was.
Yeah.
Like,
So from what I understand, I sound like an idiot, I'm sure. But the architect makes the Matrix. It's
Mhm.
not perfect. Neo's like an anomaly.
sure.
He has all these magical, whatever. In order to kind of reset everything and keep things going, Neo has to choose
Yeah,
men,
yeah.
women to redo Zion. Usually he does this. He doesn't. And so what's different this time that was not present in the prior iterations is that now Smith is infected and he is like a virus, plaguing the Matrix.
Yeah.
And Neo is in a position to bargain for peace.
So
That's the difference.
I guess the point is that he's going to save the Matrix. That's why the
Yes.
machines, so they can have power.
Smith, I think, was a threat to the machines. And so Neo said, I can help you.
But the threat was that he was going to destroy the whole Matrix and thus destroy all their
Power source.
human body batteries.
Yes. Which, by the way, that's one thing I'll say is,
A little goofy.
well, it was supposed to be like they use humans as like processing power,
Uh-huh.
but they thought people wouldn't get it. So they used like a Duracell battery or whatever back then.
Oh, really? Okay. That makes more
That
sense.
makes much more sense.
Yeah.
I was hoping they would just like retcon it, by the way, in this new movie and just say, yeah, we discovered that we could, use your bodies for processing.
Yeah.
I think people would get it now. Wouldn't have gotten it 20 years ago. People get it now. Anyways,
Yeah. Okay.
so then Neo says, I got to go to Machine City. And then he goes and then he makes that deal with the computers
right.
and he wins. Now, I guess the thing is that after the Matrix, like the events of Matrix Reloaded and Revolutions, like happen over a period of like, I think like 2-3 days.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Because it starts and it's like the machines are coming and then it ends. Like it's
Right.
a
Yeah.
few days that those two movies take place. And what really happens in those is they're coming. Neo goes to the Oracle, goes to the Architect, goes to the Oracle, then goes to Machine City, and then, gives himself up to destroy Smith. That's the main story. That's it.
Mhm.
Right? Like it's very simple. And if you wanted to, you could cover that in not much time. So everything around that, to tell that story, you have action, whatever, that's fine.
Mhm.
And, you can show Zion getting attacked, but all this other stuff just added like an unnecessary amount of like runtime. Like the entire Merovingian thing, it was just there for the plot. Like he didn't need to, like as a story, like he didn't add anything to that, that story of Neo just, helping get peace.
Yeah. Okay. So the whole thing is kind of confused. I feel like it's kind of muddled. The third movie.
Yeah.
Okay. Like here's the thing that I remember at the time, even when I watched it the first time. Like, what is this? Just complete like the separation between the Matrix and the real world. Okay. Remember at the end of the second movie, I think he zaps the Sentinels in real life.
That is one thing that
Okay, what the hell
I
is
have
that?
zero.
What is that?
Zero idea of.
Okay. So that doesn't make any sense.
It said he was close to the source. Like, he gets his power from the source.
Okay.
I don't know what that means. Like, is he like part robot in the real world? I have no idea.
So he's literally in real life with his no powers at all, and he just EMP kills these Sentinels. Why?
Yeah, I mean, I
Why
guess
put that in there?
the entire thing is, even though they talk about like religious, philosophical stuff, the entire world has like a pretty hard consistency.
Yeah, it's a real world.
Yeah, it's a real world.
It's the real world.
So unless you want it to be like, oh, he has like actual powers and it's like an actual prophecy.
Yeah, I
an
know,
actual,
but
like,
then it never really comes up again too much. And then why does Agent Smith how does he mind download himself into a real human?
yeah,
Like, what is that?
Yeah, I suppose
And then how does Neo see the real world with his computer eye
that was
vision?
a problem.
Like,
yeah.
what is that?
For Smith, I mean, like maybe I don't know if somebody lives in the Matrix,
Uh-huh.
like
You can
hear me out.
Yeah.
Hear me out. If you lived 15 years in the Matrix and then you went to the real world, those 15 years would influence or
You're gonna keep cutting to the real world, like the MTV logo, right?
if you grew up in the real in the Matrix
Uh-huh.
and then you were taken out, like who you are is based on who you are in the Matrix. So if someone like Smith can mess up your mind in the Matrix and like override it, whatever, then once it gets downloaded back to your real body, it's not that you are Smith, but maybe it's like an imposter syndrome. Like, I'm Smith, but it's just that you know,
but he has all of Smith's memories. But the other thing is like Smith is like a program.
yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, I know Kung Fu. Maybe in the same way Smith can like upload like fake memories, whatever, into this guy's brain.
It's very tenuous. And when it happened in the movie for the audience, I think they were like, huh? You know what I mean?
I don't know how many people questioned it then, but yeah, I agree.
Dude, I mad questioned it. And I was 14.
Oh, it's tenuous, but it's hanging in there. It's hanging on.
It's like you're all connected to the cloud, right? And then your washing machine like imprints itself on your brain. And then you wake up one day and you're like, spin cycle. Like it doesn't make any sense. Like you can't even copy like stuff over from like Mac to like Linux. You know what I mean? It's like this,
I'll defend it. I don't. I'll defend it. Like, he learns Kung Fu. You download Kung Fu, he knows Kung Fu. It changes who he is as a person. So you can like just.
It changes what he knows, but he's still him because he has his biological brain that he's walking around with, just like the other dude.
Well, they say if you die in the Matrix, you die in the real world.
Yeah.
Like they're getting punched, their body makes it happen.
So like his neural connections all just like changed around, like because Agent Smith did one of these on him.
Yes.
Okay, whatever. I mean, that's clearly
I'm gonna defend this to the this whole movie. I'm gonna defend.
That's not great, right?
No.
And the shocking Sentinel's not great.
Mm-hmm.
He's blind, but he can still see stuff.
Well, especially at the end of the Resurrections, they're like flying through. He can see everything. He's like just destroying hundreds of them at a time.
Yeah, what is that? What is that?
No idea.
Here's the one thing that I thought maybe.
Okay.
Now it doesn't make any sense.
He's still in the Matrix.
Okay, well, when I watched the movie, the end of that's what everyone thought, right? At the end of the second movie, like, oh, Zion is just another level of the Matrix. They haven't gotten out yet.
Yeah.
That would have been cooler, probably.
It would have been, I think, simpler.
That's good because no one knows what the hell happens.
I don't mind. I think
you clearly don't mind.
Well, no. Well, I don't. What this film ended up doing is making people ask a lot of questions that I don't think other films would have them ask.
Here's the other thing. Like, there's just lots of things that just are kind of silly or don't make sense. You know, like the machines are tunneling into Zion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then do you remember like to save the first of all, they're all like with their weird like gorilla machines, just like shooting up at this one hole. It's kind of goofy, but whatever. To save the day, what happens?
EMP.
One ship makes it back with an EMP, even though every ship has an EMP, and it kills all the robots.
Well, it doesn't last too long. It lasts like 30 seconds.
Yeah, why don't they just have EMPs all the time, every day, constantly, every 30 seconds, just going off?
Well, again,
they can never be harmed, right?
Like they mentioned, it also disables their kind of defenses.
Yeah, but they don't need defenses if they have the EMP clearly because it killed everything instantly.
What also I don't get is like these are incredibly intelligent robots. Like, why don't they just like make some kind of EMP shielding?
Why don't they just make some kind of like tunnel nuke and just drop it in there?
Yeah.
Well, look, I'll forgive that because there
has to be a story.
Well, no, because the machines, like it's all part of their plan.
Mm-hmm.
They like know Zion is like they're not like struggling to destroy it. They're like, okay, well, this is what happens now, just like it happened all the other times, whatever. But it was a little goofy, right? Because they have EMP. They clearly it's very easy to make EMPs and they use them all the time. So just put one of those on, just like keep pressing it. Just destroy all robots all the time. But it's just little goofy things like that where you see it and you're like, what? Like, it doesn't make any sense. It takes you out of it. It's just like that over and over and over again.
You're right.
And like Agent Smith, like his motivations, like what did he want to do? Like destroy the Matrix that he lives in? Like,
I don't think he knew what he wanted to do.
That's not good.
I'm not smart enough to figure that one out.
That's the whole central point of the story is that he and Neo are like fighting. Like, but what's the why? Like, what does he want?
But he says in there, you know, you took my purpose from me. You killed me and I was supposed to be deleted, but
so he just wants to kill Neo?
Yeah.
So why does he have to destroy the whole Matrix or whatever? Why do the machines like not want him to do whatever it is he's trying to do? Why can't the machines just reformat that hard drive and just make a new Matrix like they did apparently?
I'm going to say
why?
I don't know how much of like how much people are like their energy. All right, here's I guess a global
here's another thing.
Question I have is
right.
Can these people not, or can these robots not make power plants like nuclear power?
Remember, well, okay, what happened is all the robots were solar powered. Remember the first one? And then they scorched the sky, whatever that means.
It's in the Animatrix.
Okay, but what does that mean?
They had like F-15s like go and just like drop black smoke over the atmosphere.
That's it? There's literally just smoke in the way?
I'm going to assume that there were some chemicals to like destroy.
Okay, so all the robots are solar powered, but they destroyed the solar power source.
Yeah.
But this was like 1 billion years ago. So yeah, surely they could have been
like 200.
They could have invented something or just had people on hamster wheels or whatever.
They knew nuclear power existed.
Because they had a nuclear war, right? Whatever, it doesn't matter. Okay, here's the other thing I'll say. We see the sky. It's not that high up. They could have probably just built like a pole and put a solar panel on top of that instead of harvesting all of humanity in batteries and making a fake world from the living. That's just me.
They had to keep it going.
Yeah, okay. So what I think is like the battery body thing, like it's fine for the first movie.
It's supposed to, if it was processing, it would make
a lot more sense. But like that concept, they had to keep it, obviously.
Yeah.
But like for the first movie, you didn't even think about it because you don't know anything about the rest of the stuff.
just vague enough.
And it was just fine, but they had to keep it. But you start thinking of these goofy, stupid things when the movie kind of like falls apart. That's when your mind is left to wander to like, well, why, blah, blah, blah. Like things don't make sense.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
That's a good word for it. There's also like goofy stuff in there. Like the little kid has like his little arc of like, I'm only 16, but I got to reload the ammo. And then the old guy's like, stick with me, son. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I didn't care about those characters at all.
No, of course not. And like the two girls like on a like rocket launcher crew,
leg.
like
Yeah.
it's just like why?
It's just
like,
there to make you feel something.
Like we don't care about any of this.
Yeah, and that scene, man. So if you take away the Merovingian stuff, which really didn't need to. All right, here's what I think happened. They wanted to make one movie, and if they had just made it like, Neo's there, he talks to the people, Smith is the problem, he bargains with the machines. That's it. And Zion could be there a little bit, but the audience, I think the audience for The Matrix, right? They want it to be a lot broader appealing than maybe what the Wachowskis wanted it to be. And so the action scenes for Zion had to be in there. And then the Merovingian plot stuff, he's not like in the second movie, I had no idea he was important, like really important.
Oh, yeah, like not really.
And then in the third movie, he can't be like the biggest, most important guy because you have all these other characters. So they should have either made him more prominent and made Smith just the background stuff.
Do you remember when they go to the club?
Or something.
Oh.
Which one? The second or third one?
The third one. When they go to the club at the beginning? I'll say two things. One, remember the guys were like, they're shooting at the guys and then like they kind of went away and they're like, what? What's going on? And they were just standing on the ceiling and it looked really goofy and awful.
With that, and with that nightclub, the BDSM stuff, I think this is what I meant is in The Matrix, the original one, the choices that they made were so like timeless and fine that they like subsisted throughout all ages. But around that time, there's other properties like, I don't know, Underworld, other stuff, which you could kind of see how the like Blade, like that kind of like underground punk rock, aesthetic, that was a thing in other movies.
And did those movies come out before or after?
Around.
Because it's hard to say. The Matrix was so influential. Like, did it influence them? And then it looked like they were copying those,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, whatever.
But anyways, as I was saying, if like the whole Merovingian plotline, like in order to make like just one movie, like they could have just taken his entire thing out and it would have been better because he's the reason for this like very video game, like in order to get to level 3, you have to give me 15 of these bushes of corn and then collect 60 of these things. It's you have to get the keymaker. He's with the Merovingian. All right, you got the keymaker. Now you have to go to the architect, but there's a building. You have to take out this power plant. It doesn't service the story at all. It's just there to put people on screen and have them do stuff. And I don't care about that. I want motivation, like good stories. I don't know.
Yeah. So, again, I think that's the biggest problem with the third one. It's just kind of like confused, muddled mess.
Yeah. If you take out the Zion scene, if you take out the Smith and Neo fight scene, you're left with like 30 minutes of movie.
Yeah. Like all those other characters and stuff, you're just like, eh.
But I enjoyed, like I said, I enjoy Morpheus's like conviction, and I enjoyed Neo Trinity's, relationship. That was good.
And I don't know if it's satisfying that like Neo, he's like, I have to do this, but I don't know why.
Oh yeah. And if it's Keanu
again,
Reeves.
like seriously, the stuff with him just blowing up those rockets. What the hell is that? What is that? That makes no sense. Makes no sense.
Yeah.
Or being able to see when he's blind. Like, what is that?
I have no answer.
Maybe
for that.
Philosophically, there's like, a reason, but like, it doesn't make any sense. It takes you out of it completely. You're like, what?
It doesn't make sense in the world that the film has created. If there's like an actual prophecy, like bigger than just the Matrix 1, then that's fine. But that wasn't established.
Yeah.
Just some other things about the second one, I guess. Well, one, Hugo Weaving had a good few years, right? Lord of the Rings and this.
Was he in anything else? That's all
Does he have to be in
no,
anything else?
No. But
Just rolling in dough. One. And then two, I don't know. I don't really catch this the first time, but in previous iterations of the Matrix, like there were vampires and werewolves and stuff.
what?
Yeah. I think the architect alluded to like whatever.
Oh yeah.
And then the Merovingian is like, he smuggles these people.
right.
And so that woman kills those two guys with silver bullets, implying that they're like werewolves.
Oh yeah.
And then those two twins are like angels. Like the stuff just went over my head, but it's in there, which is little tidbits.
I don't know if it's a good thing or not.
It didn't distract you.
No.
There's words. There weren't like weird images.
Yeah, sure.
There's a scene in the second one when they're trying to get to, the elevator. Like the power's all out. They have to get through this door in like 5 minutes, whatever. And so that the audience understands what's going on, they have one of the characters literally just say, "Only 2 minutes left. Only 1 minute left. If you don't get through that door, you're gonna die." He's literally telling the audience what to feel.
These are the stakes. These are the stakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then for the third one, I guess the way that they probably filmed these movies is a lot of green screens and whatnot. So I do wonder sort of what was going through the minds of the actors as they were on these green screens, delivering these very, prophetic lines like Hugo Weaving's up there acting his heart out. And the end product is what it is. He's still fine in it, but
Yeah.
I don't
know.
with the bad CGI.
You do what you can. And it wasn't bad for the time, right? It was like state of the art. It's just the state of the art was bad.
Yeah.
That's all.
That was one thing. And then, I had a comparison to make with Star Wars. Like in the third Star Wars movie, you have Leia, Han, they're on Endor, and they have to like disable the shield generator, right? So Luke can do his mission. So you have two different like locations, but they're kind of working together. Whereas in this one, Neo goes off to Machine City to make that deal with the machines and revolutions. And then, the whole Zion attack is happening. And I guess Neo's actions do affect the Zion storyline, but because Zion doesn't affect Neo, I don't really care about the action that happens there.
Well, you also don't really care about like the characters in Zion, any of them, right? Like you don't care about Locke or that guy that's the commander of the shooting machine or the little
Mifune.
kid or the council of old guys or
Who are incredibly confident that Neo's gonna
like you didn't care about
he's
any
gonna
of
win.
them, really. At least I didn't.
No.
Like, nah.
It was cool world building and to see the politics of it, but characters individually,
It's
not
kind
much.
of this weird thing where you're like, all of humanity's gonna die, and you're like, nah.
Well, they said they said something like 250,000 sentinels up there, one for every man, woman, and child in Zion. So it's 250,000. That's a lot,
Yeah, it is.
but it's
a
also
lot.
not a lot.
Yeah, sure. But it's like the entire human race is going to go extinct. But you still don't probably feel much unless you actually have like a personal connection. You would care more if a character that you really liked was in danger themselves rather than like the entire human race. That's just how things work. Brain, I guess.
Again, yeah, man, this movie, for coming out when I was 9 years old, like it handles the hacking stuff pretty well.
Does it?
Well,
Like in what way?
I guess it chooses not to show stupid stuff. Like it
Like when they're hacking it, it doesn't look like
yeah, or
CSI
whatever it
or
is.
something.
Yeah, and then they use the key maker and all these metaphors. They like 100%.
oh, you mean that kind of stuff.
Well, that too. They like 100% commit to the metaphor.
Yeah.
So that audiences aren't going to get confused, and it is kind of timeless, and you can just kind of like explain it away in post. So it is impressive.
And what happened with that third movie? I have the same question.
If you just take away, if you watch it right, the first 25 minutes is Neo ends up in that train station,
Yeah.
and then you realize, oh, the Merovingians trapped him there, but you don't know how he got there.
But then he gets out like immediately.
25 minutes,
But like
25 minutes of the movie.
right.
So then he says, I'm going to go to the Machine City. So Neo's threat is, I'm going to go to the Machine City. Trinity dies. He fights Smith. He dies. So if you take away the Smith fight, his entire arc, like his entire actual what matters arc is like
He goes to Machine City and he fights.
is like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like 10 minutes. That's it. And then between those two, you have Zion.
Yeah.
Or like,
But Zion is just sitting there waiting to die.
no, but it's like Zion's there. And then Niobe's like flying that ship.
Yeah.
And then, we're going to batten down the hatches. And then you have the leg shooting the drill thing. The other drill comes in, that is all completely unnecessary because it's not part of the central story. Like you don't care and it doesn't affect anything. It's just will they survive or won't they? And
But
you
why
know
is
they
it
will.
such a mess when like the second one wasn't as bad?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If they wrote them at the same time, they should have. What they should have done is the Merovingian stuff should have been. You don't understand who he is as a character. He doesn't. You don't realize
Yeah,
that he
I
matters.
didn't think he was going to show up again.
Yeah, and then he shows up and you're like, you're a lot more important than I thought. So what they should have done is moved him earlier into the Matrix or made it to where it wasn't just like contrived plot. It was something like this is like made him more central somehow.
But I don't think it's not like the problems with the third movie aren't just like, oh, you move this here, you take this out. It's like it's like a fundamental problems with that movie.
No, it's like because the movie is actually 10 minutes long and all the other stuff you just don't care about at all.
Like the ending is not.
The main story element was that Neo sacrificed himself like Jesus, to the machines. Like that's what actually matters.
Mm.
But it's just that you don't care because you don't care about the action going on because it doesn't matter to the overall plot. And the characters who are there are not people we've been with for a long time. And while you understand their motivations, you don't really care. You just don't care. You just don't care about most of the movie because nothing's set up.
Like I literally just watched it and I can't remember lots of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I just know because I would pause it whenever something happened because I was in shock. So that's why I know 25 minutes it took to get Neo out of that train station and it didn't matter.
No, dude.
And I know like an hour before like anything again with Neo and that was complete garbage and unnecessary.
Yeah.
And then I know Smith scene was like 10 minutes, whatever, or 5-10 minutes, whatever. Completely gratuitous.
Yeah, like the stuff with the machine when he's talking to the machine.
That was cool.
That was cool. And also you've never had any dialogue with machines before.
Yeah.
Ever. It's always just been like, that's them.
This would have the third movie would have worked really well as like a manga.
It would have worked better, I think, if they had more time with the machines.
Yeah.
Like if they had got there like 30 minutes in or like
Humans versus machines is the
whole
conflict.
point.
And not like the physical conflict, like who's got the better guns, humans or
Yeah,
machines,
yeah.
but like the ideological conflict and what is life for them and for us.
Yeah, it would have been better if they got there earlier in the movie and you got to explore the conflict from their point of view.
Sure.
And Neo's like, hey, you got to do this and this and this, but the machine's like, no, but you guys, last time you were free, you enslaved us all and all this stuff. You know what I mean?
And
something.
the Animatrix tries to rectify some of these problems, but you shouldn't have to watch that to care about the machines.
Yeah. It would have been a lot more interesting to do that instead of like Zion stuff.
Right. So if it had been a prequel, it would have been, I think, really good. Because if you could have had the Matrix preloaded, and then Revolutions, like that would have been pretty good. Because that would have been awesome. It would have been exactly what you want to see. You wouldn't have seen Neo and Trinity and Morpheus. And then people would have been like, what? There's no Neo? And then whatever. Because up until 2016, like the Matrix Reloaded was like the highest R-rated box office opening.
Oh, really?
Deadpool.
Oh, wow. I didn't know.
I remember when it came out, it was like shattering records.
Oh.
So the Reloaded did great, but man, if like the goodwill you have towards Reloaded, if you could have put in the good stuff from Revolutions and made that into a great movie and then had an equally good prequel, this could have been Lord of the Rings-esque, like good.
Yeah, sure, whatever. Yeah.
It's just sad to like think of what could have been.
If you took this crab movie and made it amazing, it would have been great.
But it's there. Like it's not like,
Is it there? I mean,
you could see how if you cleaned a few things up with Reloaded and Revolutions, you could be like, this is it. This is also a tight movie with a tight plot. The some things that I'm not sure about are like, the bigger metaphors.
Third movie, you'd have to clean a lot out.
Not even clean, just cut.
Yeah, you'd have to cut a lot out.
If you cut 80% of the third movie and 20% of the second movie and just smashed it together.
Okay, maybe. Yeah, maybe.
That's a good movie.
Okay, yeah, maybe I could see that.
And then a prequel, I would have loved a prequel.
Why do you want a prequel so bad?
Because it explores all those things that I like. Like the machines getting sentience and then what happens.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
They should have done that instead of this.
That's what they wanted, but because, people wouldn't have watched it, maybe at the time they didn't. I would have still watched it.
You ever watched Jupiter Ascending or Cloud Atlas? Did you watch them?
I watched Cloud Atlas and I thought it was beautiful.
They were bad though?
It wasn't bad. It was just, it was just kind of all over the place.
Kind of flat?
Maybe.
Like the third movie? All over the place and kind of
but
whatever?
With good CGI.
Okay,
really
sure.
good CGI. And then Jupiter Ascending, I thought was really, really pretty, but maybe tonally, I don't really care. But pretty, again, like very pretty.
Well, that's fine, but it's not. You'd rather have it ugly and be written well or
Yeah,
whatever.
like primer or something.
Right?
Nah. Yeah.
No. Okay. You got anything else?
No.
All right then.